Hello again, guys. This is going to be just a quick video. I wanted to make for quite some time now. Let's say for the last 2-3 weeks, when this whole shitstorm started with Konami and Kojima, and news started coming out about Kojima being basically not an employee of Konami anymore, just a contractor, that he will leave the company in December, etc., etc. Continuing to the whole debacle with PT that Konami pulled over the last weeks, and also their delisting of used PlayStation 4s with PT preloaded. I think we all can agree that those PS4s disappearing from eBay and being delisted by eBay is Konami has at least something to do with that. But that's not what I actually want to talk to you about. The reason I wanted to do this tape is because, as far as I've seen, everyone's like really all doom and gloom about Metal Gear and Silent Hill, and we know that if there's going to be any more sequels to both franchises, Konami is going to milk the shit out of it. And I for one, as for example a diehard Metal Gear fan, I don't really give a crap. I didn't enjoy Rising. It's a good game, but I argued with some guys that basically Metal Gear as a series, it takes itself seriously. So you take, to some extent, all the crazy seriously. And Rising is just so over the top. It's basically like Bayonetta and Devil May Cry, and it's just so different in tone that I don't consider it. I know it's not canon. I don't consider it to be actually a real Metal Gear game. It might as well be a good game. I just even though I like spectacle fighters, I don't really care for it. But looking at first Del Toro's track record, since everyone basically pretends like this is the first attempt that Del Toro made to into the video game world, or that he tried to do a horror video game, which isn't quite true. Back in 2012 was the cancellation of another Del Toro project called Insane. It coincided with the closure of THQ, who was the publisher at the time, and Del Toro still has those rights. THQ returned them to him, since it was his idea and they weren't going to use it anyway, because of their financial situation. But the guy has a pretty shitty track record when it comes to his plans on making games, and it's not his fault. It's like every game he's trying to work on is basically getting cancelled, and he just kind of has to take it in strides. But here's the thing that people kind of forget, that he sits on those rights. Kojima, in previous interviews over the last 2-3 years, stated that before PT, that he would be thrilled to do a Silent Hill game, even though he's like a scaredy cat. He doesn't like horror games that much, but that he would actually find it challenging and a great experience to try as someone who isn't really into that genre, because he's scared, or he scares easily. He doesn't like this kind of gross stuff. To actually try and find a way to psychologically frighten the players, and saw this as a challenge. From interviews from both of those guys, it seemed that they were really enthusiastic about working together. So actually there's nothing really stopping them. I mean, Kojima is a household name, and I don't think that if he would, for example, approach Square or Capcom, or on the Western side of stuff like Grasshopper and Platinum did with, for example, EA, that he would find much resistance in finding a publisher who would be just eager to slap the tagline, a Hideo Kojima experience, just like EA did with a Suda 5-1 trip. So I don't think that it's going to be that bad. I just think that we have to wait a while, since he's, as far as we know, he's contractually obligated to stay as a contractor at least till December, till the game is finished, and if they needed some patching and stuff like that, to take care of that. But on the other hand, I think that we might have, I hope at least, that we might have a good chance of those guys basically spearheading a new IP for another publisher. I don't think that Kojima will basically abandon game development, as one April Fool's joke on a website assumed that Kojima would basically trade video games for movies. It might just take a while, like if he's has to sit at Konami till December, so he might start his company next year. I guess that many of his staff would like to go with him. I mean, they have a beef with Konami, not with him. Nothing is except for money stopping Del Toro and Kojima to do this project, regardless of Konami. If they don't call it Silent Hill, it can be another IP, and that prospect for me is thrilling, since people embraced PT with such fervor, even though it was at the time before we knew that it was a teaser for Silent Hills. We thought it was a new IP, the same way we thought about Phantom Pain for some time before the internet did its thing and realized that it's just a big hoax and it's the next Metal Gear. I also heard some people basically complaining about Kojima and he's having his little spat and stuff like that before those reports from staffers came out about the working conditions. Like I said, I don't think that, I didn't thought at the time that like Kojima was behaving like a prima donna, and Konami was basically this poor publisher who has to deal with his shit. Especially since there's one nice story, it goes like way back, but I read recently, again for the paper I'm writing, that the CG director for the first Silent Hill, Takayoshi Sato, was like most of the guys in Team Silent came from another team that didn't perform well or stuff like that. So Team Silent was always like the misfit of Konami, and he learned himself to do those fancy renderings. Konami wanted something to look great, like to be able to compete with Capcom. And he was the only one in the company who actually knew how to do that. And they tried incessantly to give him an assistant, which he described later on to basically spy on him to learn what he knows, and then that they be able to fire him. Because apparently the company maybe thought that he was hard to work with and didn't take their crap, and he fought for it that in his contract it was written that he was working alone. He was the only one who was doing the CG. And in many making ofs, they basically, for promotional material, they talk about it like, oh, they were just such a small team, and oh, he did it all by himself. But basically, he just wanted to do it by himself. This was his insurance that Konami wouldn't kick him to the curb and steal basically the knowledge that he accumulated through hard work, because they didn't want to pay him as much. Which, looking at the reports that we're getting now from workers from Konami, doesn't seem so unplausible and unbelievable when you think about it. So I hope that Del Toro and Kojima get together on a project to basically give Konami a big fuck you, because Konami being Konami. And another thing is, if we're ever going to see another like Metal Gear or Silent Hill related thing, you can bet your ass that they find a way to make it a pachinko or a slot machine, since the owner of Konami is working really hard to get gambling allowed in Japan. He's one of the big supporters of the bill to legislate gambling, which for at least the end of the Second World War is illegal. Just another funny stuff. Basically, it's illegal, but it's not. If you play pachinko, you get like a stuffed animal and a, what was it? Like not a bill, like a certificate about the amount of points you got, and you go basically to another booth around the corner, where they basically just collect those papers, those cards that you get in the pachinko hall, and then they exchange those metal balls and this paper clip that you got for actual money. So gambling already exists, or Konami wouldn't have that higher revenue from their pachinko machines. They just want more. We've seen it with other IPs, that they basically made a pachinko machine and slapped the name of different franchises on it. So this is nothing new, and this is what we can basically expect from them. Which is a shame when I think about it. Way back when, Konami and Square were basically the reason I wanted to get into the games business. I wanted to get into games development. That's why the reason why I basically started learning Japanese since I was like 12. After finishing high school, going to university to learn even better Japanese, only to find out that when I finally finished university, those companies were in the shitter. And we had basically the big rise of Unreal 3 and the rise in popularity of Western developed games. And well, everyone remembers those mediocre or terrible games that Namco, Square, Konami and the likes put out during, let's see, 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, like this. Around this time when we switched from PS2 to PS3, and Japanese developers didn't really know what to do with the hardware, and that decided basically that survival horror doesn't sell, or JRPG doesn't sell, or in the case of Square, I still have the original demo for Final Fantasy 13 at home. This was a totally, completely different game as what was actually shipped later on. So seeing the company like Konami go down the drain like this, seeing one of my favorite developers who I had the fortune of meeting last year when he was on press tour in Berlin, and getting my collector's edition, like I think the 20 year anniversary collector's edition signed by him, and getting a Raiden drawn on by what was his name? Yoji Shinkawa. This was his name. It was just a big honor. I thought I would basically just drop dead right there if my friend wasn't there to basically like get me through this, especially since they looked like really surprised when I got the box out and asked them to sign it, and it's a box from Japan on the other side of the world, and he actually like, hey, shake my hand, and I was like, okay, I'm going to drop dead. I was just so overjoyed, and seeing what's happening right now is basically tearing me apart. But I think that there's actually a bright side to it, and we basically, I think, have to wait at least till the end of the year when Kojima is finally free after 30 years of service to that company, that we can see him venture into new territory and hopefully create new, more memorable IPs for us to enjoy without the shackles and burdens of Konami. I mean, to some extent, I understood why Konami may be pissed. Like, it takes forever to make a new Metal Gear game. I get it. It's expensive. I get it. Even though those games always sell like 6 to 7 or 8 million copies. But I get it. From a business standpoint, I totally get it. On the other side, when you look, for example, on the examples that Jim Sterling gave about their poor press work, about how many actual titles they put out, like, it was fewer from year to year. You could see that the releases that they actually were doing were just, the numbers grow smaller and smaller. There weren't any games that they were actually producing. There weren't any games that they're actually promoting. So basically having just one game, this one huge game which cost a shit ton of money to make, I can on one side I can understand it. On the other side, why the heck didn't you basically invest into other IPs? Why didn't you make other games? You could have other studios, other games to basically support it. And I remember how people were basically pissed at Ground Zeroes, which is right now going in the background, that Kojima split off half of this game, or the prologue to his game. And in interviews he basically said that he was sorry, but he was confronted with the reality that if he wouldn't do this, the Phantom Pain might not be able to ship. One could say that, Konami needed the money. Nowadays I would actually say that they basically blackmailed him. This is his magnum opus. He wanted to finish that game, and if he wouldn't have agreed to Ground Zeroes being sold separately, so that Konami could make some money, because they suck at business and suck at being a game publisher, and who doesn't publish any games anymore. And especially since some pointed out that Konami started so early to pull everything Kojima related off the project, so that they basically, after all those years that those guys are working on the title, they want to see that title ship and hold this as at a ransom, to basically keep those people in their places, shut up, and basically make the money and then fuck off, which is really a shame. And I haven't seen many people talk about that in context, like seeing what is happening now with basically what happened last year with Ground Zeroes, for example, where many people were basically pissed at Kojima. And I'm sorry, but there was at least for me it was like, I could understand it to some degree. I thought that the regret and the those few information that he gave, because he couldn't talk at length about it and explain the motivation behind it exactly, led me to believe that this wasn't totally his idea. And we know from other developers in the industry that when corporate tells you something, when the publisher tells you something, that it's a great idea to put, for example, microtransactions into Dead Space 3. A single player game where you buy to basically cheat yourself out of gameplay. Great idea. And that the developers have basically take the heat for it. Yeah, we think it's a great idea that we have to do this. We see this with shit that who was the developer of Dungeon Keeper Mobile, because they Dungeon Keeper Mobile, they basically closed their doors because of that shit, and they had to defend it, which is a shame when you really look at it, that we know this shit is happening, and still Kojima got most of the flag for this shit. No one was actually blaming Konami for that move. I was like, okay, Kojima just hopped on the mainstream wagon and tries to slice the game, when we all know that if someone is actually doing the slicing, in most cases it's the publisher. I mean, I guess you can find developers who think, yeah, that's a great idea, especially maybe in in the free to play market, that they would enjoy this kind of thing and think about it in terms like that. But for someone who's basically with the industry from the beginning, and has been basically making games the way that we know them, that when you get the product, you have the complete product, and not some diced up bullshit that we got today with overpriced DLC and season passes and shit like that. So I believe him when basically it tells him that he's terribly sorry and his heart is bleeding to basically see his baby being diced up like that. But while I've rambled on enough, all I wanted to say, I hope that you're still hopeful that Toro has a great IP under his belt that he wanted to realize, and what the hell, they already worked together. Why not try this again when Kojima gets his own studio back on his feet, and maybe a contract with Square or with Capcom, which I think Square would be the least awful. I mean, they might sell you what is it called, timed exclusive, but when you go to Capcom, you have on-disc DLC. If you go to EA, you get a shit ton of microtransactions. I don't think that Ubisoft would be quite interested. Deep Silver is too small, I think, to handle, although they're doing Dead Island 2, and that's, oh, I'm so looking forward to that one. But yeah, I don't think that's it is as black and white as some might look at it. It's a shitty situation, and yeah, but I think there's a silver lining. At least I hope so. Fingers crossed, and that's actually all I wanted to say about this. I might get back to you about the PlayArt Sky story and the Twitter war that Kojima has with some SJWs later on, about how the doll is sexist and stuff like that. Might take a swing at that. I don't know yet. I don't know what I really think about that, and if it's worth a whole video, but at least that's about the whole Del Toro Kojima thing. That's what I wanted to get out, because I haven't seen anyone else talk about it in that way. And that's it for now. I'm logging off, and yeah, thanks for listening.